Hello, everyone. Welcome again. I was just speaking to Joe last week. Generally, what we have seen is buyers are smarter than ever. They're walking into meetings with Claude and ChatGPT, and I don't know how many other tools open, literally fact checking in real time. And yet, many revenue teams are still optimizing for speed. More demos, more activity, more emails, more calls, more noise, more everything. But faster doesn't mean better in modern pre sales. Depth beats polish, precision beats charm. Today, Joe and I'll be talking about what good really looks like and why raising the standard might be the biggest revenue lever most teams are missing in this new world of AI. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks for having me, Manisha. Glad to be here.
Great. So, Joe, you're leading 125 people pre-sales and post-sales today. That scale doesn't happen by accident, right? I mean, it's the result of strong standards, strong conviction. On building these teams across multiple companies, what hard lessons shaped you how you lead today?
That's a great question. Foundationally, I think there's 3 lessons that I've learned in life. Just 3 easy ones for SE leaders across the board. The first is you cannot fix what you cannot measure. Early in my career, I inherited teams that were almost running on instinct. Everyone felt busy. Nobody could tell me which deals were actually influenced, what our conversion rate was, or where breakoffs and handoffs were kind of breaking down. I kind of made a commitment that every team I built from that point forward would have a data foundation before we tried to optimize anything. Before I moved, before I looked at anything, ground ourselves in the data. And at Parloa, in my first couple of days, that's exactly what I did. I focused on standing up KPIs, dashboards across the functions, just to get that alignment. You cannot lead a technical org on vibes. I would love to, but you just can't. I think secondly, the SE can't be an afterthought. They can't just be brought in to do a magical demo at an S3 and everything's going to work. That model's dead. At Parloa, right, our SEs are embedded at S1. They own technical discovery. They co-own the deal strategy with the AE. They have a seat at the table from call all the way through signature. I changed this really easily day one by aligning with sales leadership and making it clear. If you want real answers, you go to your SE leader first, period. And third, culture is infrastructure. What I mean by that, I can make a million processes, playbooks, executive memos, and roll everything up. But if the underlying culture is broken, it just doesn't run. When I joined Parloa, I inherited teams across 2 continents where trust was a little kind of on the fence and transparency was inconsistent. So I had to build that cultural foundation. Weekly cross-functional syncs, OKRs with real accountability, and then frameworks that showed people where they were going before any improvement would take root. That, again, all bubbles up to 6 months later now, and we have 7 aligned functions, standardizing our operating cadences, and a team that actually trusts the system they operate in.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. As you mentioned, about culture. I think generally it's very hard to build the team grounds up. But when it comes to especially culture, it's easier to set that culture when you're building teams grounds up. But when you're inheriting a team, I think changing that culture or, fine tuning the culture is like really the hardest problem to solve. And kudos to you if you have been able to do that in 6 months. That's not a very, long time frame as such. But in AI, yeah, that's a long time frame.
Well, yeah, and again, in that 6 months, it's the culture became that first part, right? That's the foundational thing. Build the trust with the team, kind of coordinate it that way, yeah.
Did this also happen because, you have worked with your CRO, Chris, for over a decade now, right? That kind of partnership is rare in multiple companies. What makes that relationship work, and why did you choose to join him again at Parloa?
Oh, another great question. Chris and I have built many teams together, like across companies now. What makes it work is that we fundamentally agree on one thing. Like, the field organization is the engine of the company, not a cost center. And he's a CRO who understands that pre-sales quality drives post-sales success. And that if you shortcut technical validation, it shows up downstream as scope creep, delivery overruns, and then the worst part is churn, right? Obviously. The reason I followed into Parloa specifically is because I saw a company that is genuinely differentiated in our product space in agentic AI, and it's sitting at an inflection point, which I think we're definitely seeing. Like, this quarter's insane. The technology is real. It's not a wrapper. It's not vaporware. But most, I think, key here is, like, there's a lot of ambition to grow bigger, especially in the agentic space, and the field organization needed to match that ambition. So that's the kind of challenge I live for. Take the strong product, build the go-to-market engine around it, and then prove it at enterprise scale. And Chris knew that's what I do. I think he calls me like the force multiplier for those reasons, and he gave me the mandate to do it across pre and post sales. That kind of scope and functions reporting up to me, that doesn't happen unless there's a lot of trust between, the CRO and his SE leader, for sure.
Yeah. And we are seeing more and more of this, that pre-sales leaders are also now leading post-sales teams as well. So they are no more just, solutions leaders or pre-sales leaders, because if you see from skills point of view, both the functions are so similar. And this way, customers or buyers, they get the continuity of people who are actually solutioning, who are actually helping them solve a problem. Because salespeople will have to move on to other deals, but if the leader for pre-sales and post-sales is common, then the friction is less, right? I mean, as you said, right, the churn becomes the biggest issue if both these teams are on a different page. So I really like the idea of, having pre-sales and post-sales under one leader, because the alignment is, it's a win-win for both the company and the buyer. So since we are talking about Parloa, right, and especially for the listeners who may not know Parloa, though, like, the company started, I think, 7-8 years back, and you have transformed yourself completely as an agentic AI company, right? How does conversational AI change expectations for pre-sales teams, and generally, how was that shift for you from being a SaaS company to being an agentic company?
So, conversational AI, specifically agentic conversational AI, right, which is where Parloa operates, it fundamentally changes what an SE has to be capable of, like, at that level. In traditional SaaS, an SE demonstrates a product, right? You show screens, you click through workflows, maybe you do an integration demo. The customer evaluates what they see. In agentic AI, there's a product to show. We demonstrate that, but what we really have to demonstrate, and what has to resonate with the folks, is that there's an intelligent agent that makes decisions, handles real conversations, integrates with your back-end legacy systems, and adapts in real time. That means, right, all of our SEs here need to understand the ever-changing world of LLMs, prompt engineering, conversational design, integration, or enterprise integration patterns, data governance. They need to translate all of that now into a language of a VP of customer experience or a CIO, CTO, so that they can act on it. It also means your proof of value process is completely different. We can't just, do canned demos and say, hey, hopefully this works. Our SEs build, like, specific proof of value environments, which is where the market takes us, with our agent architects, who are conversational designers, and our forward deployed engineering. kind of all put our hands on to make sure that it works in these systems. And we design those agents that speak the customer's language, route their actual use case, and connect to real systems. The SE becomes, in these cases, like an architect, a strategist, and a translator all at once, right? All just kind of rolled into it. And I think what most SE leaders are missing today is when you're selling agentic AI, the pre-sales work, again, directly determines the quality of the post-sales deployment. So bad discovery creates a bad scope doc, which creates a bad build, which creates a failed customer. That's that big miss in that infamous MIT study around AI projects. It's because they weren't leveraging pre-sales appropriately. They were just making these projects to see what they could do. Pre-sales to post-sales, they're not separate functions. It's just one continuum, as you said, right? It's just one solid path to value, however you're getting there.
Yeah. No, super interesting. I think even though the pricing might still be seat based or consumption based, but fundamentally, I think the biggest difference in traditional SaaS and agentic AI is like people don't expect output, people expect outcome, right? Like the buyers are now expecting outcome and not just output. How it translates in terms of pricing, we are yet to see that. Some companies, especially in conversational AI space, have already uh, implemented that pricing model as well of outcome, but still a lot of other AI companies are yet to, I think, accept that change.
Yeah, we're grounding in that value heavily here at Parloa. So regardless of our pricing, if we ground in the value, that's the big win for us.
Well, we opened this episode talking about raising the standard. Let's make that concrete. If you were interviewing an SE today, what tells you in the first 15 minutes whether they are operating at the new standard or still playing the old game?
Another amazing question. I like to ask one question that kind of separates old from new really easily. I ask them to walk me through a deal where you lost the technical win and what you would do differently. What that opens up, it's really easy. The old school SE will talk about the demo. They'll say the demo went well, but the customer, chose a competitor on price or features or something like that. They don't ever tell me owning the outcome that they performed, like overall, and what they were actually watching in that process. The new SE here, the new standard, will talk about discovery. They'll say, I missed a stakeholder, I didn't map the technical decision criteria well enough, or I let the AE set the agenda for the technical conversation, which is a huge no-no, right? Instead of them leading it. They'll take that ownership of the entire technical sales motion, not just the presentation layer. That's what I'll kind of notice in that. I'm also listening for whether they think in systems, like, did they talk about handoffs? Do they mention what happened after the deal is signed? Do they understand that their work product becomes that foundation for delivery again? I think an SE's job, in most cases, ends at signature. If they think that way, they're operating in an old playbook, right? It's not that. They have to own that handover and scoping. They don't just throw it over the wall. They stand behind their architecture and then transition it appropriately to the delivery teams.
Yeah, makes sense. I think what has happened is like exactly what you mentioned. Because of that, SEs are not just a part of 2 stages of deal cycle, if you know what I mean. They are part of now 5 stages of that deal cycle out of 8. So that's a big shift which has happened, and that's where the ratios are going all over the place when it comes to AEs and SEs. We'll talk about that as well.
For sure.
Well, you have on SE hiring, right? You have told me before that you're okay hiring SEs who aren't the best when it comes to being energetic or poised, as long as they're deeply knowledgeable. Why does technical depth matter more than charisma? Because you also want SEs to be charismatic.
Yeah, you do for sure. But I think where we ground this one is that the customer changed, right? So enterprise buyers today, especially in AI, are technically sophisticated. They've done their homework before you walk in, and not just at a service level. They've dove deep. They've read the docs. They've tested APIs. Some of them may have already built a prototype with a competitor. Like, we run into that all the time. They don't need someone who can work a room necessarily. They need that trusted advisor. They need someone who can go toe to toe with their principal architect and earn that respect in minutes. I'll give you like a real example. In an agentic AI deal, your SE is going to be challenged on prompt reliability, hallucination mitigation, conversation state management, and enterprise grade security, all in the same like 15 minutes. What do you do across that? A charismatic like generalist, they'll get eaten alive. They instantly lose credibility. Like, you don't understand how this works. How can you talk about guardrails? You don't know my security posture, right? A technically deep SE who can explain like exactly how our agent decision framework works, draws on a whiteboard, and then connects it to the customer's specific compliance requirements. They close the deal. That's what they want in the room. Now, I'm not saying, right, like, soft skills don't matter. Of course they do, right? You want somebody a little friendly, a little engaging. I'd rather coach someone on presentation skills than try to teach them distributed systems thinking. Like, that's just a whole different world. I can train boys. I can't train depth. I can't. And I hire for what I can't build and develop what I can. At a period there.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think most of the deals today, especially in the agentic AI world, really need depth and less narrative, more depth.
For sure.
Yeah, you told a story that really stuck with me, Joe. An SE who hit President's Club doing 250 demos, but never really owned the technical win, right? That is a dangerous story, to be honest, right? What does it really reveal about companies who basically measure success given the number of demos, number of meetings, number of deals? What do you think about those kind of companies?
I love this. I love this one so much. It's dangerous, and that's what I want to say. Is that it teaches the entire organization the wrong lesson. It says volume equals value, which we know is not true. And in pre-sales, it's a hard lie, right? Think about like 250 first demos. That means like roughly one demo per working day. And in no world, that SE did meaningful discovery. Before each demo, there was no world where they customized the environment, they didn't map the stakeholders, or understood like the customer's actual use case. They didn't do it. They were just a machine. They showed up, they did their thing. It's like high throughput, low depth. I was honestly and candidly, I was a little kind of taken aback that the company celebrated them for it. It's like, and a lot of my peers were like, what? But that was the foundation we put in there. How many demos get you here? And it was just foundationally wrong. Now, meanwhile, I may have had some other SEs who did, 40 to 60 architected engagements, right? And converted like 80% of those. And handoff was clean. They actually went through. You didn't hear about the project. It just landed. And I believe that there was a person who didn't make it to club because they didn't hit this demo number. So the metrics problem at a core, if you measure SEs on activity volume, demo runs, calls completed, RFPs responded to, you get activity, which is great. You can see kind of where that thing is. But if you measure them on deal conversion rates, on outcomes, that's the better path forward. Every one of my SEs here is tracked on whether the deals they touch actually close and whether delivery can actually execute on what was sold. That's our standard. That's across the board. It's a metric we've grown to. They know it's pretty high. Once the deal closes, it's a 90% of those deals have to land with minimal back interaction from the delivery team.
Interesting. Yeah, I think if you're doing one demo a day, honestly, you're winging it most of the time.
Yeah.
And especially with, AI, it's making people faster, but it's also making it easier to create surface level work, right? And I mean, it's so hard to prevent turning this speed into actually slop, like AI slop. How do you do that?
That's a great one. There's a lot of AI slop out there right now, but there's a metric ton. I think we all see it all over LinkedIn every day. I think the question every SE leader should be losing sleep over analysis, right? AI tools, and I'm a huge fan of them. Like, I think, Manisha, you and I talked about last time, like, I understand I'm the laziest person I know, and this AI space has jazzed me up for this whole thing. But, right, I still use the tools, huge proponent of them. They make it super easy to generate a decent looking response, demo scripts, professional sounding business case. The problem is that seems passable and not professional sounding. And the same loosely accurate, or they almost become semi-differentiated, is not there anymore. And in like enterprise AI sales, the customer can tell a difference easily. The same way we can do it when we're watching those silly YouTube videos now with all the Sora marks in them, right? Like those who can kind of look and go, this doesn't make sense. That's how your business users are looking at that AI as an impact there. How to prevent it? I think it's quickly we do quality gates, right? No demo goes to a customer without a dry run review. We do pre-mortems, post-mortems to ensure that we're totally synced up on that. No scoping document goes through without both to delivery without the SE and our agent architects signing off, right? These are gates that have to exist specifically because I assume people use AI to draft it faster. And the gate is like where we put that little bit of human in the loop over it to say, okay, it looks good, now pass it on. And second, a change for what I optimize for, right? I don't measure how fast someone produces a deliverable. I measure did the deliverable drive the outcome, right? At that high level. Did the demo advance the deal? Did the business case, right, from our value team, did that convince the economic buyer? Did the scoping doc, right, enable clean delivery? Like all those things are there. And I think thirdly, and this is the one nobody really talks about. I actively fight AI draft as the final draft. And here's what I mean in that it's like a cultural thing. I tell my teams AI is the first pass, right? It gets you everything all the way up and it's super fast, right? Again, that's the volume thing. It'll get you there. But then you have to finish your products, right? That's what the SEs are delivering every time. They're delivering a product almost. And it can tell, right? If your RFP was loosely done and not fully baked in, it looks different. So they should be giving it a pass and going, great, this looks like this. Having the right tools in place for RFPs to expedite all that, that's a huge win, huge win. The AI should save you time on your structure so that you can invest more time on insight. And that's the standard.
I think the easiest catch is I search for M dashes in the document which I get. There are obviously a lot of people, especially writers, who always used to use M dash. Now they have stopped using it because when they use M dash, people think it's an AI generated slop. So yeah, I mean, when you read a response, you can actually tell, is this Gemini, is this Claude, or is it ChatGPT? Because every LLM has a personality. And if you're using it a lot, you can tell by looking at
$1,000,000%. It's also how the people are interacting with those AI services. We see that a lot. If you're super polite and try to be super poised in like your description because you feel it's going to get you, the voice comes out as unauthentic as it went in, right? It's like Gigo, garbage in, garbage out is still a foundational thing that I think the people that are using the tool, and we know, right? We see it every day. If you do it certain ways, you get the wrong response out for sure.
totally. Well, now on to the segment I'm most excited about. We talk about this a lot. Breaking down the formula on how to pair A's and SEs, like charisma, depth. There are so many things we have to consider. Today, most organizations pair SEs and A's by segment and availability, not by complementary strengths. How do you do it at Parloa? How do you optimize these pairings and really understand the personality profiles that complement versus contradict each other with at least, I'm assuming 60, 70 SEs that you have?
Yeah, little less on the SEs right now, but growing fast. I think at Parloa, we're really intentional about this in a few ways, right? Like first, we run those joint deal reviews, like strategy across that. So that's our pre-mortem. And this is like where myself and my leaders can observe like the AE, SE dynamic in action. It's not just about deal outcome, it's about how the pair works together under pressure. Do they complement each other? Do they have that yin and yang total flow? Is usually what I'm looking at. Does one compete for more airtime, right? And those are just like, are they vibing, right? To kind of put it in that place together. Secondly, I work with my SE leaders, so Marco in EMEA and Kevin in the US, to make pairing adjustments based on what we're seeing. So if a particular AE SE pair isn't clicking, where we don't just want to hope it gets better. We quickly reassign based on the framework. So we're looking not at the skills and do they know the vertical, but also right, some of the most productive pairings at Parloa right now come from me pulling that pair apart. And does it look good on paper? Is it creating friction in deals? And where's the data we can track across it? So again, to the point earlier with maybe I have a really technical SE and what I like to call is their UI is a little different, right? It's very, very stoic UI and that's what you get. And that's fine, right? To match that and have that full, like, look, I need a really energetic AE. And sometimes you'll have the other side. Sometimes I'll have an SE who is just full of energy in the room, commands attention, like all these things. And like she'll just sit there and go, I own it. And you go, great, you're amazing. I want a really subtle AE who's just moving the deal through. It's a bit of a gut feel, but there's also a bit of a framework to kind of balance the big S and little e or little s and big E with the right AE, right? Are they a little a and a big E, or a big A and a little E? It's the same way.
I've spoken to multiple SE leaders having SE teams of 100 to 200 team size. Everyone has a different framework. Some like really finalize at the beginning of the year, and some keep changing it quarterly, like making minor adjustments quarterly, depending on, as you said, right? I mean, there's too much friction happening, then it impacts the customer. So you have to make these minor adjustments. But I think these are the frameworks which should really be documented and which can help the upcoming SE leaders.
For sure. Making it easier at who you're looking at allows it to be slotted differently.
And why do you think CROs care deeply about this? How does the wrong pairing show up in close rates, velocity, or burnout? I mean, do you have any examples where you could clearly see that these pairings really impact the buyer a lot?
Yeah, so it shows up in exactly those three areas. So like close rate drops, velocity slows, and burnout increases. So when the close rate drop, when we're looking at an AE and SE are misaligned, the customer feels it, right? The technical narrative doesn't support the commercial narrative. Discovery is super shallow. The SE wasn't empowered to lead it. Like the technical team as a whole isn't brought in, and that deal just stalls or dies completely. And velocity slowing down. Bad pairing is more internal alignment on the meetings, like more rework on demos and the proposals, and back and forth between the AE and SE about what is promised versus what is possible, which is, I mean, that's an age-old thing, SEs and AEs. I wish there was a magic wand for that one right there. And then burnout increases, right? When an SE is paired with an AE who doesn't respect like that pre-sales process and pulls them into everything, anything, and just constantly just overworks them, right? You get an SE that edges towards burnout because they become just a demo button or just a help me with this technical draft. Like that becomes wrong. And CROs care because that AE and SE pairing, it's the smallest unit of revenue generation then in the entire company, right? It's just getting that unit wrong and everything else downstream just suffers.
Yeah. I think there are so many part of your jobs which actually make it, I mean, those sound very niche, but they really make a big impact when it comes to winning or losing. I think similarly, partner SE, what we spoke about is similar. I think that's the most undervalued role in pre-sales. Why do you think that role is harder than people realize?
Again, another amazing question. And I foundationally, right, I've built the partner teams at a couple different places now. And the partner SE operates in a space where they have like massive responsibility, right? It's like pipeline gen all the way through to close. There's a lot in there. But they also have almost no direct control. They're accountable for like ensuring the partner's SE team is successful. And they don't manage them. They don't hire them. Sometimes they barely know them. And they have to get them, right, in this case, like, can they deliver Parloa's product at our quality, right? Like, can they sell that vision the same way we believe in it at our core? That's an incredibly hard job. And I think the part that makes it undervalued, they don't get deal credit usually, right? Because they're additive to the additive layer, right? All of my teams, and they know this, we're a support system for the sales engine here, right? That's how we have to look at each other. And they're a support to the support system. And that's exactly like why my first hire at Parloa was like a seasoned partner SE veteran, Danielle. Like she came into this world, she knows the world, and I put her specifically in that role because she knows the partner motion. She understands what she's doing. She understands focus on revenue and focus on building. And you don't usually give that really strategically role to somebody who's inexperienced. You have to understand that space, understand there's a lot to do with not a lot of attaboys, if you will, or congratulatory things. I try my hardest every day to go, Danielle, it's awesome, and the entire team, like Trent and Tanvi, all of them just, hey, you guys are doing amazing, thank you. Just driving it that way.
Yeah. And especially these partners are working with multiple companies. Those companies, mostly, companies, once they cross 50 million ARR, like their revenue, chunk of their revenue starts depending on partners as well. I mean, initially, usually it's 10%, 20%, but I have seen a lot of companies above 100 million ARR, 30-40% of their revenue actually comes from partners.
Pretty high on partners here. It's one of our top priorities. I think it was Chris's big bullet on his way in. He made the 4 big bets, and 2 of them were partners coming in. Like, we have to do partners, 1 or 2 very specific ones, and just double down on those. And that's exactly what we've been executing towards.
I'm sure a lot of partners are listening to this one. Well, now we have covered the big themes, Joe, but I would love to switch gears for a moment. Let's do a quick rapid fire to get to the leadership tips, tricks, and instincts honed from experience that don't always make it into the formal answers. Are you ready?
So excited for this.
Great. One trait every great SE must have, no exceptions at all.
No, but yes. So they have to be cognizant enough to say no when it's a bad fit, but have to know the yes to move it to being a good fit. What does that look like?
A metric most leaders obsess over, but you think it's overrated.
There's so many. There's so many. Again, I'll hit on the one earlier. It's the activity, the volume. So number of anything. It's not getting to value, which is what they should be anchoring on.
One leadership habit that's non negotiable for you.
Radical candor, non-negotiable. You have to meet people where they're at and be honest and transparent as a leader. It's what I strive to do every day. And in doing such, I also take the time to coach and not just direct. So I'd love to give input where it's needed, but also allow people to figure some things out.
Last one, a book, podcast, or thinker who's influenced your leadership style recently.
Do I get the cheat code, Diary of a CEO? And then I think, secondly, Manisha, obviously yours, but both combined really lay into it. I do listen to probably every Diary of a CEO podcast every week, listening to some of the biggest CEOs in the world tell you where they've messed up before. It gives you that second of humility where you're going, yeah, today was a rough day in the SE or delivery world. This person also took a lot of beatings and look where they're at.
Yeah. No, totally. I think I do the same. I mean, it's that's when you realize you're not alone. Everyone goes through this, but yeah, how do you really learn fast from your mistakes and to avoid them in future is the trick. Well, thanks, Joe. This was a great conversation. I think a couple of things which I'm taking away from this conversation. I think when you're selling agentic AI, pre-sales works determines post-sales journey. Pre-sales to post-sales is just one solid path to value. These two cannot be different if you want to keep your customers happy. And the second one for me, again, is very important. I'm definitely going to work with you and come up with a framework for this, observing the AESE dynamic and determining optimal pairings because that ultimately impacts win rates and the velocity of deal closing.
1,000,000%. I cannot wait to work with you on that, Manisha. I'm so excited. Thank you again for your time today and allowing me to spew some of the things that are always in my brain. Thank you.
How can our listeners reach out to you if anyone has a question?
Yeah, so getting me on LinkedIn, it's LinkedIn/in/call center AI. Obviously, I've had that in my brain forever, so excited to chat with whomever. Please feel free.
Well, thanks again, Joe.
Thanks, Manisha.